Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking really closely at a story one of you shared with us. It's a very personal narrative. It really digs into that feeling of forgetting English words, feeling totally stuck, and then finding a way towards fluency and confidence that it feels different.
Yeah, it's such a powerful source because it really grounds this struggle that so many people face in one person's actual journey. It's not abstract. It's something, very real we can all learn from.
Exactly. And our goal here in this deep dive is to really pull out the key ideas from this story. We want to understand why forgetting words can feel so bad. Maybe challenge the whole idea that it means you're failing or something's wrong with you.
Hmm.
And ultimately see if we can uncover a more, human way to connect with language. Something that goes beyond just, memorizing vocabulary lists.
It really pushes back against the standard ideas of what success in language learning even looks like, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this whole journey, it kicks off with this moment of real frustration, and then this really strange kind of cryptic message. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so the story introduces us to Anna. She's 24, and on paper, she's ticked all the boxes. 6 years studying English, she passed a B2 exam. She knows the grammar rules, she's got the vocabulary. You'd think speaking would be easy for her.
But it wasn't. The source describes this feeling, and I think so many of us recognize this, where the words just disappear right in the middle of talking.
Yeah.
The source calls them black holes in her brain.
Yeah, and it gives these really specific, almost painful examples, like wanting to say she strongly desired something, and the word is just gone. Or needing the word change from a bus driver, basic stuff, and her mind just drawing a complete blank.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Or trying to explain how utterly exhausted she is after a long day at work, but the only word she can grab is tired. And it just doesn't cut it, It doesn't convey the depth of the feeling.
It's so isolating when that happens. And the source, it really captures the physical side of it too. The sudden panic, the heat rising in your cheeks, that awkward, nervous laugh you do while you're scrambling to say something else, anything else.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to reroute the sentence to get past the block, even though you know the word is in there somewhere, you just can't access it.
And that leads almost inevitably to that nagging inner voice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anna starts wondering, is it me? Is there something fundamentally wrong with my memory? Am I actually losing my English? It feels so personal, like a flaw in you.
Yeah, like a personal failure.
There's this really vivid scene. The source paints Anna sitting on her couch, her tea's gone cold beside her, and she just whispers this question out loud. Why do I keep forgetting English words? All her notes, her textbooks, they feel completely useless in that moment.
It's a real low point. But crucially, it also becomes a turning point. Instead of just accepting this constant frustration, she makes a decision. She decides, okay, I need to figure this out. Why is this happening? And I need to find a way to fix it to actually remember.
And that decision, well, it sets her off on a path she completely didn't expect. She gets this message out of the blue from a total stranger. It's short, but it just flips her whole perspective. It says, you don't forget words. You forget how to feel them.
Wow. Just hearing that line from the source.
Yeah.
It makes you pause, doesn't it? It's so counterintuitive. Forget how to feel words. What does that even mean?
Exactly. It leaves Anna totally baffled, but also really intrigued.
Yeah.
It challenges everything she thought she knew about what knowing a word actually involves.
Yeah.
And that curiosity pushes her to reply simply, can you help me?
And this message, this reply, leads her to meet a woman named Eve. The source describes her vividly silver hair, kind eyes behind glasses, usually wearing something red, meeting Anna in a library garden. a peaceful, thoughtful setting.
And Eve immediately gets it. She tells Anna, oh, that's so common. People who study for years, pass the test, fill notebooks,
Right.
and then they just freeze up when they actually try to speak. That feeling of your brain just emptying out under pressure.
Yeah, she validates it completely. And this is where the source gives us a really profound shift in thinking through Eve's words. Eve doesn't just agree Anna is struggling. She reframes it. She tells her point blank, "You are not stupid."
Which must have been huge for Anna to hear.
Absolutely. Eve explains that the freezing isn't a sign of failure. It's actually the brain trying to do its job protecting you from the fear of judgment, the pressure, all the negative emotions that can get tangled up in language learning.
That's a total paradigm shift, isn't it? It's not about your innate ability. It's about the context, the emotions surrounding the act of speaking. And this leads right into Eve's core idea. Words aren't just data points. They're not files you just store and retrieve.
Right. They're deeply connected to feelings, to experiences, to our personal stories. You remember things much better, much more easily when you feel safe, relaxed, even a little bit playful.
Like how a child learns.
Exactly like that. Eve uses that analogy. A child learns their first language through joy, through interaction, through making connections, not through drills and grammar tests. The goal, Eve suggests, is to change English from being this scary test you have to ace.
Into something more like a companion, a friend you actually want to hang out with.
Precisely. So the big question is, how do you do that? How do you start feeling words instead of just memorizing them? Eve gives Anna a very concrete tool, a simple notebook. Soft brown cover, smells like old paper, the source says.
Okay, a notebook, that sounds familiar.
But the instruction is key. 1 word a day. But the method is completely different. It's not about writing definitions or sample sentences from a dictionary. Anna is told to draw the word, to think about how it feels in her body, to connect it to a personal story or memory. Use color, sound. Eve even suggests singing the word.
Okay, I can see why Anna's first reaction, according to the source, was basically, that sounds kind of weird.
Right, because it's so far removed from the logical, analytical way she's always approached learning. But Eve's response is perfect, and that's why it works.
So does she try it?
She does. The source describes her first attempt with the word hope. She doesn't just write hope. She draws this little shaky candle flame in darkness, and she writes a sentence from her heart. Hope is the light I carry.
Wow.
Then she reads it aloud, actually places her hand over her heart, physically connecting with the word.
And does it work? Does she feel anything different?
The source says it's immediate. Anna describes the word feeling warm now. It didn't feel like just letters anymore. She even finds herself whispering to the word in the notebook, "I will not forget you." Like she's making a promise to it.
She's building a relationship with the word.
Exactly. She's making the abstract tangible, personal, emotional. The next day, she tries courage. Draws a little lion, writes about times she felt brave, and the payoff isn't far behind. The source says the next time she actually needed the word hope in a conversation.
It was just there.
It just came to her, effortlessly, no panic. Like the source says, like a friend waving hello.
That's amazing. So it wasn't magic. It was the result of changing how she related to the word. From data retrieval to emotional connection.
Precisely. It wasn't about forcing her memory. It was about reconnecting with a feeling she had intentionally embedded with that word.
And the story shows her continuing this.
Oh, yeah. The source details how her notebook starts filling up. It becomes this vibrant, colorful record, images, little stories, feelings attached to words.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. Like, for grateful, she sketches her grandmother's hands, those wrinkled, familiar hands. For brave, she draws a mountain she remembers hiking, connecting it to that feeling of achievement. For joy, it's a quick sketch of her cat, Luna, mid-pounds.
So they're not dictionary definitions at all. They're personal anchors.
Exactly. Anchors into her own life, her own emotions. And this isn't just changing how she studies, it's changing something inside her. She's not just collecting words, she's integrating them. She starts to feel them, to really own them, and people start to notice this shift.
Which leads to a challenge, I imagine.
It does. An invitation comes. Her friend Maya is organizing an English storytelling night at a local cafe, and Maya casually suggests, hey, maybe you could even share a story.
Oof. Public speaking. After everything.
Right, the old fear flares up instantly, and his first thought is, no way, I'd freeze, I'd forget everything on stage. That deep-seated fear of public forgetting is still potent.
But does she say no?
Well, this is where we see the growth. The source says she actually types out, no way, but then she pauses, deletes it, and replies, maybe. I'll think about it. It's a small thing, but it's huge. A little crack of courage.
That's a big step. But the fear doesn't just vanish, right?
Not at all. The night before the event, the source describes the fear being back with a vengeance. The panic, the worry about freezing, about people laughing. It's a reminder that this isn't about eliminating fear, it's about learning to move forward with it.
So she seeks out Eve again.
Yes, she does. She meets Eve and just admits it, I'm terrified. And Eve's response is one of the most powerful moments in the source material. She says, good, fear means you care.
Wow. That reframes it completely. Fear isn't the enemy. It's a sign you're invested.
Exactly. And Eve tackles the fear of making mistakes directly. She's incredibly honest. She tells Anna, basically, look, you probably will mess up. You'll stumble. And that is absolutely okay. Mistakes aren't the end point. They're the starting point.
Permission to be imperfect. That must be so freeing.
Immensely. And Eve's final piece of advice for the actual storytelling is simple but profound. Don't focus on remembering every single word perfectly. Speak from your feeling, speak your truth. Let the words come from your heart, not from some memorized script. It loops right back to that core idea, connection over perfection.
So how does Anna prepare? Does she use the notebook?
She does. The word she chooses to work with is voice. She draws a figure on a stage, hand on her chest, and writes, my voice is not perfect, but it's mine, and it matters. She's connecting the word not just to the act of speaking, but to her own sense of worth, her vulnerability.
Okay, so the night itself, how does it go?
The storytelling night arrives. It's a small, cozy cafe, maybe 20 people, described as having a warm, supportive atmosphere, and as the last one scheduled to speak. Sweaty palms, heart hammering, the whole deal.
Been there.
Right. She walks up to the little makeshift stage area. She looks out at the faces, which the source notes seem kind. She opens her notebook.
Does she read from it?
No. She looks up, takes a deep breath, and she just starts talking.
And what does she say? Does she stick to a plan?
It seems much more authentic than planned. Her opening is really vulnerable. She talks honestly about her past struggles, about thinking she was just bad at English, feeling stupid or broken because she kept forgetting words.
Sharing that vulnerability right away, that takes courage.
It does. And then she shares the big realization she gained from Eve and her practice. She wasn't broken, she was just afraid. She'd been trained to use English like some kind of machine, aiming for flawless execution instead of just allowing herself to be, well, human.
That's such a relatable insight.
She explains what she learned, that words are so much more than just data points. They're tied to memory, feeling, sound, connection. And she talks about how she started actively feeling words, living with them through her notebook.
And does she talk about the forgetting itself, how she deals with it now?
Yes, and this is incredibly practical for anyone listening. She says she doesn't panic anymore. When a word doesn't come right away, she doesn't force it. She waits, she breathes, And she finds the word often comes back like a bird landing, gently, when she gives it space. It's about trusting the process, not fighting it.
Trust instead of force. I like that.
Her conclusion really brings it all together. She says, I may still forget words sometimes, but I no longer feel lost when it happens. And then she delivers that line she'd practiced feeling. English is not a test I must pass. It's a path I choose to walk, one word at a time.
Powerful. And the reaction.
The source describes it as more than just applause. It was a feeling of connection, of shared understanding in the room. And for Anna, the feeling wasn't the dread she anticipated, but pure joy.
That's a huge win.
A massive internal victory. Later that night, back home, she adds a new word to her notebook, proud. And she draws a simple star next to it, marking that moment of overcoming the fear, sharing her truth.
So the story doesn't end there. What happens after this breakthrough?
No, it keeps going. The source picks up 2 months later. Anna's notebook practice is now deeply ingrained, a regular part of her life. English doesn't feel like a wall anymore. It feels more like a door she's managed to open.
That's great progress for her.
But the story shows her perspective broadening. A new question starts bubbling up for her. What if I'm not the only one who needs this? She starts looking around, thinking about classmates she knew who were always quiet, her coworker Ravi, who seemed hesitant.
She starts seeing her past self in them.
Exactly. She realizes maybe they weren't unmotivated or lazy. Maybe they were just scared. Just like she used to be.
That empathy leads her somewhere.
It sparks an idea. Maybe she could offer a different kind of English class, one based on this idea of connection, feeling, drawing, storytelling. Basically, focusing on bravery over perfection.
Taking what worked for her and sharing it.
Right. So she takes another brave step. The source says she emails the local library, the same place she met Eve, and just asks, could I maybe use a room to try running some informal sessions like this?
What does the library say?
They're supportive. They email back saying, yes, we'd love to host your sessions, which is fantastic validation, but it also pushes her into this whole new territory.
Suddenly she's a teacher.
Well, that's her fear. The source shows those familiar doubts creeping back in. But I'm not a teacher. What if nobody even shows up? Stepping outside her comfort zone brings the old anxieties with it.
Does she talk to Eve again?
She does. She calls Eve, voicing these fears. And Eve, as always, offers perspective and reassurance. She reminds Anna the best teachers are always learning themselves, framing it not as needing to be an expert with all the answers, but as someone willing to be on the journey with others.
That's a helpful way to look at it.
And about the fear of no one coming, Eve just says gently but firmly, they'll come.
So does she go through with it?
Yes.
Yeah.
A week later, there she is, setting up a small meeting room in the library. She has her trusty notebook, some colored markers, her familiar anchors, and nervously waits.
And do people come?
They do. The source introduces us to a few of the first ones. Noor, described as a shy teenager. Carlos, an older man who still nervously clutches his dictionary. May, a mother wanting to connect more. About 7 people initially, sitting in a circle, looking at Anna.
That must have been intimidating.
For sure. The source says Anna's hands are a bit shaky at first, but she takes that deep breath. We see her using her own tools, finds her center, and she starts. Her opening words really set the intention for the space. Welcome. In this room, we don't memorize words. We feel them. We draw them. We live them.
Wow. Laying it out right from the start. This is different.
Totally. It's a declaration that vulnerability and connection are the priorities here, not just getting the grammar right.
And what's the first exercise?
The first word they explore together is home, and the source really highlights the impact. People don't just write homey, they draw what home feels like to them personally. Noor draws a cloud and a sun, maybe symbolizing safety or comfort. Carlos draws his guitar. May draws a steaming bowl of soup. Anna adds her own drawing her notebook.
That's beautiful, connecting the word to lived experience.
Exactly. And then they share their drawings, talking about them in English. Maybe the English isn't perfect, maybe they hesitate, but the source emphasizes they do it without that usual crippling fear. The method works because it gets around the pressure of correctness and goes straight to personal meaning.
It bypasses the test anxiety.
It seems to. And the source says, week by week, the group grows. Laughter becomes a common sound. They're not just checking off vocabulary. They're building a relationship with the language, described beautifully as falling in love with English.
That's a lovely phrase.
There's one particularly touching moment the source points out. Noor, the shy teenager, stays behind one day and shares something with Anna. She says, I used to think I was just bad at English, but now I think maybe I was just afraid.
Hearing her own past fears echoed back to her.
Exactly. Anna recognizes her own journey in Noor's words. It hits her that this isn't just about her teaching them. It's a true ripple effect. Her experience is helping someone else find their voice.
That must feel incredible.
It leads to her next notebook entry. She draws a stone dropping into water, waves spreading out. The word is ripple. She realizes her personal journey has become something bigger, something shared.
But journeys aren't always smooth sailing, right? Does the source show any setbacks?
It absolutely does. And this part is crucial. The class is thriving, 12 people now, feeling comfortable. One evening, the word they're exploring is dream. A positive, hopeful word.
Okay.
But right then, while she's teaching, Anna hits a wall. The source describes her suddenly forgetting words, mid-sentence. Her mouth goes dry, her thoughts tangle up. She looks down at her notes and they seem meaningless. Blank.
Oh no. Right in front of everyone.
Exactly. It's the return of that old nightmare feeling lost, frozen, utterly terrified. The fear of failure, but this time magnified because she's supposed to be the one leading, the one who's figured it out.
How does she handle it?
She cuts the session short, avoids making eye contact, and basically flees. The source says she goes home and just cries, thinking, how could this happen? I thought I was past this. I thought I was better.
It shows that recovery isn't a straight line. The old patterns can resurface.
Definitely. She's devastated. She's ready to quit, cancel the next class. She can't even bear to open her notebook. It feels like proof that she wasn't really fixed.
But something stops her.
Yes. Support comes from where she least expects it, her students. An envelope gets slipped under her apartment door. Inside is a drawing from Noor, a sun rising over a mountain, and a simple, incredibly powerful note. Even the sun hides sometimes, but it always returns. Please come back.
Wow. Her student reached out with the same kind of empathy she'd been fostering.
Exactly. That gesture, that understanding, gives Anna the courage to face the feeling. She opens her notebook again.
What does she write?
She writes the word fail, and she circles it, acknowledging it. But then she adds something else. A step, not the end. And she draws a single foot stepping onto a stone path, reframing the experience not as a dead end, but just one difficult step on the ongoing journey.
Using her own method on herself.
Precisely. She also calls Eve, confessing, I forgot everything. But Eve, ever the wise guide, gently corrects her. No, you didn't forget everything.
What does Eve mean?
Eve points out that in that moment of freezing, Anna actually remembered something vital. What that raw fear feels like. Revisiting that vulnerability doesn't make her weaker. Eve says it makes her even better, even more human. It deepens her capacity for empathy with her students who face that fear all the time.
That's a really insightful way to look at it.
And when Anna inevitably asks, but what if it happens again? Eve is honest but supportive. She says essentially, It probably will happen again, but the difference is you'll walk through it. You know the way now. Anna has the tools of it, the breath, the acceptance of silence, the connection to feeling, to navigate it differently next time.
So she doesn't quit the class.
No. Armed with this renewed understanding, she goes back. And she does something incredibly brave. She walks in, writes the word silence on the board, and she shares her experience with the group, the freezing, the fear, the urge to run away.
Turning her vulnerability into a lesson.
Exactly. She uses her own setback to teach them that silence isn't failure. It's a natural part of language, maybe even a necessary one. Words need space sometimes. We need stillness to connect with them, or to let them come back to us.
How does the students react?
They get it. They then do the exercise, drawing what silence means to them. Carlos draws a peaceful beach. May draws her sleeping baby. Nora draws a quiet girl thinking. Anna draws a hand placed over her heart.
So they all learn together from her honesty.
Yes. The collective learning is that forgetting isn't the enemy. Silence isn't failure. Growth happens even in those quiet, seemingly unproductive moments.
And what does Anna add to her notebook after that?
That night, she adds the word resilience. She draws a tree, bending low in a strong wind, but its roots holding firm. And she writes, "Even when I forget, I still remember who I am." She's tying her core identity to her inner strength, not just her ability to recall words.
That feels like a really significant shift. Where does the story go from there?
It builds towards a really big moment. A formal invitation arrives in a fancy cream envelope. It's an invitation to be a speaker at the annual language learning conference. The topic, the power of words and the stories we tell.
Wow. From teaching a small library group to a conference stage.
Yeah, the invitation explicitly says it's because your journey has inspired many. Her personal story, her way of teaching has gained wider attention.
How does Anna react? Is she thrilled?
Her first reaction, according to the source, is actually laughter, disbelief. Her. Speak at a major conference, her mind immediately flashes back to the old days, the freezing, the panic, feeling so broken.
Altave's playing again.
But then, almost immediately, she remembers everything that's happened since. Returning to her class after freezing, her student support, Nora's note, the resilience she discovered.
So it's a mix of fear and recognition of how far she's come.
Exactly. But the nerves are still huge. She calls Eve one more time, admitting she still doubts if she can handle that kind of pressure. Eve's advice is simple and ties everything together. Speak from the silence. That's where your truth lives. It's an encouragement to embrace the vulnerability, the pauses, the authentic self that emerges when you stop trying to be perfect.
Speak from the silence.
Okay. So Anna accepts the invitation. The source describes the weeks leading up to it, lots of preparation, battling nerves, moments where she forgets her planned lines and panics. But the key difference now is she doesn't give up. She keeps returning to her practice, to her breath, to her core message.
She knows how to navigate the fear now, even if it's still there.
Right. Then the conference day arrives. It's a big auditorium packed with people. She's backstage, heart pounding like a drum, just like before the little cafe storytelling night, only amplified.
The stakes feel higher.
Much higher. Her name is called. The spotlights hit her. She walks onto the stage, looks out at this sea of faces, opens her mouth to start, and nothing comes out. Complete blank.
Oh no, not again.
The notes she brought blur. Her breathing gets fast and shallow. Her hands start shaking. That old fear washes over her just as strong as ever.
But this time, is it different?
This is the crucial test of her resilience. This time, her reaction is different. Instead of letting the panic take over, instead of trying to force the words, she does something intentional. She closes her eyes. She places her hand on her chest. And in that deliberate pause, that moment of embracing the silence, she consciously remembers hope, that very first word she drew, the candle in the dark.
Connecting back to the beginning of her practice.
Yes, she opens her eyes and she begins. Not with the speech she rehearsed, but speaking directly from that place of vulnerability and truth. Hello, my name is Anna. I am not an English teacher.
What a way to start.
I am a forgetter, she continues, a drawer, a dreamer. She just starts telling her story honestly, contrasting how she used to believe forgetting meant she was failing with how she now understands it as part of being human, part of growth.
She shares the whole journey.
The whole arc. The cafe night, the notebook magic, the library class, the painful experience of freezing while teaching, and the strength she found in returning. She even shows some of the drawings from her students, Noor's clouds, Carlos's guitar, May's soup, making it clear this was a community journey, not just hers.
Bringing their voices onto the stage with her.
Exactly. She holds up her own worn notebook, saying, "This isn't just words. It's my journey, my fears, my silence, and my rediscovery." And then she does something brilliant to connect with everyone there. She just asks, who here has ever forgotten a word when speaking English?
And what happens?
Every single hand in that huge auditorium goes up. Every single one. And Anna just smiles. That shared vulnerability instantly breaks down the barrier between speaker and audience. She looks out at them and says, then we're all just learning, and we're all brave for trying.
That's incredibly powerful. The connection must have been amazing.
The source describes the response as overwhelming. Thunderous applause, yes, but more than that. Afterwards, people line up to talk to her, sharing their own similar struggles. Your story is my story, they tell her. You've given me courage. I thought I was the only one.
She showed them they weren't alone.
Precisely. Later that night, back in her hotel room, she gets out her notebook one more time. She finds the word voice again. But this time, the drawing she adds is different. It's a microphone that morphs into a bird, flying free from her heart.
Finding her voice, truly.
And she writes the line that feels like the culmination of everything. Even when I forget the words, I still have something to say. Her ability to communicate, her worth, is now tied to her truth, not just her vocabulary recall.
What an incredible arc. Does the story end there on that high note?
It provides a sense of closure, but also continuation. The final part brings us full circle. It's Anna's last day teaching the original library class. She's actually moving on to lead a larger program the library is starting, focused on helping immigrants and refugees applying these principles on a bigger scale.
So the ripples continue outwards.
Exactly. On the very last page of that first brown notebook, she makes one final entry. The word is begin. She draws her own feet standing on a path with all the filled pages behind her and a sunrise ahead. It's acknowledging the completion of one chapter and the start of the next, built on everything she learned.
A beautiful image.
Before she leaves the room for the last time, she writes a letter. It's for the next person who will teach the class in that room. It's full of her hard-won wisdom. Things like, you don't have to be perfect. Listen with your heart, care about the people, let them find their own words, especially when they forget or struggle.
Passing on the philosophy.
She stresses that core message again. Forgetting isn't failure, it's just a sign you're trying, and trying is the bravest part. Mistakes, silence, blank moments, they're all just part of the journey. She encourages the new teacher to keep the space safe for drawing, sharing, and just beginning. She ends the letter with, in this room, magic happens.
Leaving a legacy.
She places the notebook on a shelf in the room, a tangible symbol of everything that happened there, whispers thank you to it, perhaps.
And her students.
As she leaves the room, her original students, Noor, Carlos, May, others are waiting outside. They've come to say goodbye properly. Noor gives her a gift, a brand new blank journal with a cover. Noor drew herself. She tells Anna, "This is for your new beginning."
Oh, that's lovely. Full circle again.
And Anna, in turn, acknowledges their role in her own growth. She tells them sincerely, "You are my teachers, too. I learned so much from all of you."
Recognizing the reciprocity.
Yeah. The final image is Anna stepping out into the sunlight. She feels the weight of the whole journey, the initial doubt and fear, the courage it took, the connections she made. And she has this profound realization. She hadn't just learned how to remember English words better. Somehow in the process, she had remembered herself.
Wow, that's deep.
The source really emphasizes that transformation from the person whispering in frustration on her couch, paralyzed by fear, to someone standing confidently, vulnerably, speaking to hundreds. She's ready for the next chapter, accepting it will involve both silence and sound, forgetting and remembering, loss and finding, but under it all, there's this foundation of hope.
Does the source give any glimpse into the future, the ripples?
It adds a few beautiful little bonus scenes, like epilogues. 2 years later, we see Noor, the once shy teenager, now confidently leading her own English conversation group using Anna's methods. When a student gets stuck on a word, Noor gently prompts, "Okay, take a breath. Can you remember the feeling?"
Passing it on.
Anna also starts something called the Voices Remembered project at the library, basically an archive. People contribute drawings, stories, or just single words that became meaningful to them through the process. The source describes a wall filling up with these contributions: home, begin, brave, soup. Anna calls it a silent choir, finding peace just being in the space, feeling the resonance of those shared words.
A testament to the collective journey.
In a brief mention of an interview Anna gives, she's asked about the hardest probe of this work. Her answer: letting go of the idea that perfect English is the goal. And the best part: watching people remember who they are in any language.
That really captures it.
And the very final touch is an anonymous letter Anna receives, signed only M. Someone from her original class. M writes that they remembered Anna saying, "You don't have to be loud to be heard." M now teaches music and realized that through Anna's class, they didn't just remember English, they remembered themselves. Anna adds this letter to the archive, feeling it join the others like a quiet melody.
What an incredibly rich and moving story. There's so much in there. I think the core message that really lands, for me anyway, is that forgetting words. It's not a glitch. It's not proof you're failing or you're not smart enough. It's just part of being human, part of the learning process itself. It's actually a sign you're pushing yourself, you're trying, you're growing.
Absolutely. And that the path to feeling fluent, or maybe more accurately, feeling confident, isn't just about cramming more vocabulary or drilling more grammar. It's fundamentally about building a different kind of relationship with the language, one that's deeper, more personal, more rooted in feeling and experience, allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that process.
Yeah. And if you listening right now have ever felt that awful stomach drop moment, that total blank where a word should be, well, you're definitely not alone. This story makes it so clear. Even people who reach a high level, who teach, who speak publicly, they still have those moments. The key isn't that they magically stop forgetting. It's about how they learn to respond to the forgetting.
Right. The power seems to lie in that shift Anna made from focusing on perfect performance to focusing on genuine connection, allowing that space, that breath, that moment of silence when a word doesn't immediately surface. And crucially, reframing those inevitable setbacks, not as evidence of inadequacy, but just as steps. Maybe wobbly steps sometimes, but still steps forward on the path.
So if there's one big takeaway from digging into Anna's story, maybe it's this. Keep going. Keep trying. Keep speaking, even imperfectly. Your voice, your perspective, it matters even when you fumble for a word. That moment of forgetting isn't a stop sign. It's more like an invitation to breathe. Maybe trust yourself, find another way to say it, or just wait patiently for the word to return.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about that idea that forgetting is just a step, it's part of the journey, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What new step might you be ready to take today in language learning or maybe in anything else you're facing, even if it feels a bit wobbly or uncertain?
Or perhaps try taking a page directly from Anna's notebook. Just pick one word today, maybe a word you struggle with or one that feels important right now. And instead of just looking up its definition, try to connect with it differently. How does it feel? Can you draw it? What memory does it spark? Just see how that little shift changes how you relate to that single word.
Because ultimately, as Anna's story shows so beautifully, we're all kind of on this path together, aren't we? Learning, growing, forgetting, remembering, one word, one story, one feeling at a time.